Hello friends, my name is RagePanda1 and today I have got some news on the sleeper cell of the game that I've been mentioning a little bit in my streams, and hey, she's available to summon, so why don't I tell you how to build her and use her right now? Now we're going to start this video off by doing each other a favor. First of all, I'm going to start with the trait build because I know that's why you're here. And the way that you're going to pay me back for that is you're going to chuck a like on the video because you're just that nice of a person, right? Thank you in advance. So this character absolutely does only need one defensive trait, but you could put two on her if you wanted. And the reason is because she doesn't even need strength. You don't need to put strength on her at all if you don't want to. One of the reasons why she's so good is that you could get away with using honorable and then hulking, sanguine, and rapid shots. I would not put impair on this character, that's better used in other places. But one of the big utilities of this character is that she can hold all of your clan traits that you need to have for your team without losing anything for herself. She really doesn't lose much at all. For those eagle-eyed and keen-spirited viewers, you will notice that that sanguine says level 13. That's because this is my tertiary team and I'm putting it together with literal scraps. So normally I would never do that. Never ever. But because this is thrown together with scraps, that's why that's okay. The only trait that I would allow to be level 13 on a real team is rapid shots. It's the only one that really holds up when it's at that level. So on my character, since I don't have rapid shots available, I did go for brutal, which will help her a little bit, but not very much at all, as you're about to see. Now, I know there are a lot of you out there who like to use demoralize in combination with cunning. You love to do that on your team. Using hulking and sanguine and rapid shots on your team is much more important than doing the things that you're doing to negate the enemy. It's really much more important. However, this champion affords you the opportunity to have the trait slots that you need to run demoralize and cunning and all of those sorts of skills if that's what you're really into. Maybe you have some things for lasts for only 10 seconds traits that you'd like to try out, and she would be a good place to put those as well. The moral of the story is you need honorable, use energetic if you can't get honorable, it happens, and then just use her for team buffing traits, or if you really want to, debuffing traits for the enemy. When you're leveling up the equipment for this character, I haven't been able to do that because I'm building this team from scraps, but when you do level up your team's equipment, you actually want to go for her defensive slots first. She doesn't get that much from strength. She just doesn't. You want her to stay alive, therefore I would level up her boots first, and then I would level up her hat, and then her weapon, and then I would go for the chest piece. Unfortunately, I don't have the best of gear right now, and I couldn't afford to upgrade them if I wanted to, at least not for a tertiary team. And I hear you, High Guardian. You're saying, but Mr. Rage Panda, why do she good anyway? And you know what? I'm about to tell you why. She is increasing in value as time goes on, and there are many reasons that that is happening. And the most important thing about this character is that she completely ignores anti-heal. She does not give one single care in the world. If the enemy team is trying to completely cancel out healing, it's not gonna affect her. Let's start with the passive. First, when she's taking skill damage from enemies, she can trigger a precognition effect, which grants immunity to all damage, excluding control effects, for 3 seconds and restores 350 energy, which is going to get her ulting faster. Now, with that being said, having her energy get that much higher that soon into the battle is going to mean that she is ulting before the ult phase, which is good because by the time she's done ulting, that's when the enemies should start using their ultimates, which means that your team should be at full health for that phase, which is what they need to do if they're going to survive the big hitters. This effect has a cooldown of 8 seconds, which means that you'll reliably get 2 or 3 of these throughout the battle, and that's pretty awesome. Keeping in mind that we're negating the damage from specifically skill damage. Skill damage. If you were ignoring normal attacks, it would make this much less good. But since it's based on skill damage, that means you're guaranteed to be blocking a bigger attack, which is great. It also means you're providing extra health to the team by ignoring the damage, without that being able to be affected by anti-heal, which we have on Bjorn Kriegers and Akunas and traits with Obliteration, Harsh Rhyme, Cold Snap. The female Esterir came out. She's got a ton of anti-heal heal on her, and everybody loves the male soul keeper, and he tries to completely eliminate healing. And it's a good idea to be running all of that stuff, so having a character on your team that counters anti-heal is growing in value. I hope that makes sense why. Well, how else does she completely negate anti-heal? Instead of having a heal on her active skill, instead she's going to do a water shield that protects the weakest allied champion, including the caster if it happens to be her that's getting weak, and it reduces their damage taken by 40% for 4 seconds. So instead of healing back damage, you're mitigating damage before it happens, and you can't cancel that with anti-heal. If that's all this ability did, it probably would not be that good. It probably wouldn't blow my skirt up at all. However, when the shield breaks, it does damage to all enemies equal to 480% of her strength, which is a decent amount. That's a very reasonable active skill, especially if you're pulling people in close, and it's going to stun the enemies for 2 seconds, meaning she also has a pretty decent effect for powering the male Water and Sun, and you could be using them together to pretty decent effect. I would not say that she's the single best person to put with him, but they do work together very well. Now on to the ultimate. Unlike the male Water and Sun, she does not need to keep casting this ultimate for the rest of her life. The male Water and Sun wants to never stop casting because as he continues casting, he gets free stuns from doing so. He also has the ability to channel forever, which is great. That means that stuns against the male Water and Sun cancel his plans pretty harshly, which is why running so many stuns and freezes and area of effect crowd control abilities is so strong. Now, she also continuously casts her spell for 2.5 seconds. So if you get stunned in that time, it could be a little bit of a negative for you and you might not love it. However, she's not as susceptible to the stuns as the male Water and Sun. Now what she's going to do here is she's going to restore all allied champions' constitution by 35% of their max constitution for 2.5 seconds. The thing that's great about that is that she doesn't need strength to boost it. In fact, strength doesn't boost it at all. And this does fairly considerable healing. But the most important thing, you might be wishing that it was healing for even more, but the thing that you have to remember is that this effect is true healing, which means that it is not negated by anti-heal. They worded this last sentence like, I don't even understand. It's like somebody spilled a bunch of Scrabble tiles and they just threw them into the game. It says healing amount will not be deducted and champions will be unable to be healed. I think what they mean is that champions will not be unable to be healed, meaning that the male soul keeper, who just negates constitution recovery altogether, will not have an effect against this ultimate, although that does remain to be tested. So what are you going to see when you actually use this character on your team? You're going to see relatively low damage, but it might show up on the meters as a little bit of a bump, which is great because it allows you to use people like I'm currently using Female Dravapala because I don't have much else to be using. And it allows her to make up for the fact that Female Dravapala isn't exactly a huge damage dealer and the Female Water and Sun isn't exactly a huge damage dealer, but having them both together makes it so your team is not running out of damage completely. You also can expect to see potentially lower healing than you normally see from your other healers. But why would that be? The reason is because 2 of her effects are happening that make it so you don't even need to be healing. So you're not going to appreciate that when you see it on the board. You're going to look at it and you're going to say, her damage is kind of low. Her healing numbers are kind of low. And you need to say in your brain that I understand that that is going to happen and I'm expecting it. It makes sense for how her kit works and it is not an indication of her overall value on the battlefield. I really need you to be wise enough to be able to recognize that because a lot of people, it's the same thing for the female Bjorn Krieger, they don't see exactly what she's doing because they're just not thinking about it. So I'm trying to warn you ahead of time so you understand what you need to expect. So real quick, I want to go over this battle just so you understand. My male Ho does have some runes on his gear, and I think I have a rune in the weapon for my Soul Keeper. But when we look at the healing that's going on this team, if I had somebody like a male Soul Keeper on the enemy team, for instance, that's reducing all of my healing that I get to do, the numbers that I'm seeing from these other 2 people would maybe be 10% of what they are. This bar would be completely unchanged, which would give me an actual chance to be doing something in the combat. As far as damage, keep in mind, I have 0 runes on this character. Not a single one. And her damage is actually showing up on the damage meter even though she's got absolutely no gear, and I am not running a bunch of strength traits. This is exactly what we're looking for. It looks small on this screen, but you must understand that the extra power that is on my male Ho right now is making his numbers crazy, and that's why it's a huge difference. Otherwise, she would probably be about half of what he was doing. So this enemy team is running a lot of strong champions. They are much higher level than I am. Their power is like a 50% increase over what I'm running, but I just want to show you how it works. And I want you to pay attention to the fact that my female Water and Sun here took literally 1 damage this battle. She took 1 damage. And that is because a skill came in to do damage to her. She immuned it. We just saw it right there. And now the other skills that are coming in, she's immuning all of that damage for those next 3 seconds or whatever it is. And it makes it so that she is a very reliable healer for the team. Now, is she somebody that I think should be mandatory on every main team? Not at all. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that you're going to have a lot of copies of her, and she is going to be doing a lot of great things for especially secondary and tertiary teams. I don't think that you should waste her or use her as fodder. I think that you should build her up, especially since we have game modes where you can't use the same champion over again. Now, maybe if that wasn't the case, I would say just pass her by and make another male Water and Sun and have a good time. But we need to have different champions. We cannot use copies for all of these game modes. We need other good healers, and she is a good one that's going to be reliable for you, especially in high level PvP where people actually understand that they need to be using crowd control and anti-heal on every team. And then finally, another benefit of this champion is that it allows you to use frontliners that can't afford to use all of the team buffing traits that you might need. Female Galabar is one of those. She needs to have high defense so that she can stay alive with energetic and honorable, and she also wants to have high strength so that her healing stays strong. Now you need brutal and aggressive as well, and your whole build is already done. So having her on the team with female Water and Sun, where you can afford to have 3 team buffing traits, is kind of a big deal, and it does make a very strong value for the character just in that fact alone. And when you're providing that utility, you need to make sure that when you're looking at those after action reports that you are accounting for that. The extra damage that you're adding to your team, the extra ultimates they might be getting if you're running something like rapid shots. Heck, even if you're running female Shayun on the team, you put fearsome and maybe one of the anti-heal traits on her from doing attacks. Then all of her minions are out there swinging and swinging, stunning and casting anti-heal, and it's all being buffed by your lady. You got to keep that stuff in mind when you're actually looking at the after action reports. So if this kept you from making a big mistake, then of course do subscribe so that I can help you do that more often. But for now, I want to thank you for watching. I have been Rage Panda 1, and I will see you in the next one.